So this has blown me away, Mark. I have been always a fan of doodling, and one of the things that really resonated with me, if I wrote something down, I remembered it. But your concept of sketchnoting, or the concept that you introduced me to of sketchnoting, is I'm obsessed with it. So how did you find sketchnoting?
Yeah, I'm glad you love it. I love it. I think it's the coolest thing ever. I try to tell everyone I can about it. I don't know exactly how I came to it. I get down these rabbit holes, and I don't know if I could have been researching pens one day. I could have been, I don't know how I actually came to it, but all I do remember is that I was turned on to it. I might have listened to it on a podcast, but I found a book by a guy by the name of Mike Road, and it's called Sketchnoting, I believe. Is that what it's called? Or you have the book in front of you, Keith? You can put it up there. Oh, I think it's called the Sketchnote Handbook, because I have
yes.
There you go. And I have version number 2. I have the workbook. And it was just this concept of taking notes visually that I was drawn to. And there's a couple things that were potentially barriers of entry for me. I don't think of myself as an artist. I don't think of myself as the designer. I don't think of actually, I'm infamous for having horrible handwriting. A lot of times I can't even read my own writing. And so when you see some of these sketch notes, you're like, these are clearly artists. These are clearly people that are amazing. But I got turned on to it, and what it is it's taking notes visually. It's a way of, instead of furiously writing and just taking notes like mad, focusing on key ideas, visualizing them, and then writing, and then making it either a visual representation, an icon, along with words and things like that. And I came to it. I actually many years ago, I got sick. I got West Nile virus, and it was really, and I don't talk about that a lot, but it really had an impact on my cognitive ability. I couldn't really remember things as well, and I couldn't write. And then so I was kind of doodling, as Keith alluded. I was making a lot of doodles, and so that's when I started. But then I found that whenever I'd go to an event, like when we were both at the MIT EMP program, Entrepreneurial Master's Program, or if I was at a conference, like a learning event, if I could take a key idea and make a picture, I would remember it so much more. And I'd also, instead of trying to remember every point that the speaker said, I was really trying to distill and understand what were the key points, what were the things that really mattered. And so that's how I came to it. And the book's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's a framework for anybody who, you don't have to be a great writer. They show you how to make, you kind of make your own library of icons. So you kind of figure out the things you're good at, and, things I'm pretty good. I know how to do an iPhone. I know how to do a calendar page. I know how to do a book. I'm trying to think of some of the things I do. And I have my own rudimentary way of sketching people, where it's just very expressive, or stick people. You don't have to be this amazing artist. And it's just been this really transformational way of communicating for me, in that both in note-taking, but also reflecting back. Now I've gotten to the point where I'll do these rudimentary sketches of speakers, and anytime I'm at an event, I'll screenshot it. A lot of times I actually do write just in my physical notebook, and I'll screenshot it, or I've moved to the iPad quite a bit. And my setup there is either using Notability or Procreate as an app. And then I've got this great little kind of screen protector called Paperlike, which gives you a little bit of a scratchy kind of feel for your iPad. So you don't have that glossy feel. But I take pictures of the keynote speaker. At the very least, I'll tag them on social, and at the very most, I'll send it directly to them. They always love it. So it's just this other way of connecting with the people at the event I'm going to. I always try to find some way to make the most of it, and that's a way. But I'm not an artist. I don't consider myself an artist. I'm not a designer. And what I can say is that even people in my EMP class, they've asked me over and over again for my notes. I scan them, and they say that those are powerful and impactful because those were the key ideas that came to me. The first book is awesome. And then there's this workbook too, where you can even go further and just to continue to develop your library. It shows you how to map out a presentation, index cards. There's ways of just really cool, this is how you might lay out a note and just gives you different ways of composition. And so if you have any interest in this, and this is something I love. So it's like a workbook, and it's like, all right, like figure out your icons for travel, and you go in and you can just fill in your icons. And so I think that's a real key takeaway. And then I'm going to turn it over to you, Keith, for your feedback. But here's one for food, is that the really good sketchnoters, they're not just like doing a ocean for the first time, or they're not just doing like food sketches for the first time. Like they've kind of developed their own library of things they're good at, and there are things that they can represent, because it's not always about being realistic. And you go ahead and you can, add those to your notes quickly and confidently. And again, it doesn't have to be this amazing icon. Keith is a designer. Keith is an artist. He's a great sketcher and drawer. So he's going to show us, I think, some things he's been working on. But I know you've been kind of building out your icon library. But tell me now, with that all being said, tell me like your reaction to sketchnoting and what you think about it and why you think it's interesting.
So many reasons. One is, connecting to that other side of your brain. Like I mentioned earlier, writing something down, I could commit it to memory, but the idea of sketchnoting, where you're actually finding those key concepts and then creating a visual that really embeds that in your brain, that resonates with me. And I appreciate the kind words about the artistry. I think I'm better with digital stuff than analog with sketches. But one of the things that I took away from that first book was that if you draw something 50 times, you'll come up with your version of it. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Every single drawing is either a circle shape, rectangle, triangle, line, or dot, right? It's made up of these simple things. So, just coming up with like, okay, for having a coffee, right? This would be some different possible illustrations that I could do for a coffee. And like you mentioned, doing it 50 times, now I've got this that I can whip out really quick. I'm struggling with, and I need to figure out a way to draw people, because I love that in your presentation notes, the way that you have that. And they talk about, showing up early to the presentation, writing a cool title. I'd love to get some more handwritten typography skills as well. So I've got some different fonts in my handwritten sketchbook, sketch notes technique, but also coming up with my style of how to illustrate a person. I love Mountain versus Plain. The guy that does those really satirical illustrations. We actually had him do illustrations at Zen Man for the whole team. The women hated it because they're obviously not flattering, but they're so good. We had one that came out, Taylor's, he actually looked like Hemingway. Everybody else was like, you wouldn't want to put this on your social profile. But I'd love to develop that style. And I think it's the same thing, right? It's just, okay, I've got to learn it and then draw it 50 times and then start to develop my skill. So once I come up with the fonts, I'm going to move on to people, because I think that's probably the hardest skill. But I'm having fun just drawing 50 laptops, 50 cell phones, 50 different options for dividers, and just being able to come up with those quick. The other thing that I always struggled with, and this is a great example, I've probably had this Shinola book for like 4 years, and I'm on page 3 because I didn't want to put anything in the book that wasn't exceptional, that wasn't art. And sketchnoting isn't about making art. It's about taking notes that you can, resonate with those quick ideas. So the idea of no more pencil, just start doing everything in pen, it was freeing.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And I mean, to your point about like people, I mean, here's one I did the other day that's not perfect. This was a guy, Jose, that's kind of what he looked like to me, but you'll even see like I struggle with lettering too, right? Like I ran out of room, jammed it into his head. This one's on paper. So, not as easy. Like when I'm on the iPad, I can just circle it and move it and no big deal. So that's actually a benefit of the iPad, which is really nice. But even like just learning, what can symbolize a person or a group of people, And so here's a way that I always do that, right? Just a silhouette.
I like that.
Just a silhouette. And then, if you, digitally, like I just put out a carousel, and which on Instagram, this was all born out of sketchnoting. So this is what this carousel, I'm going to go ahead and just share real quick. And so you'll see, like, this all is born out of sketchnoting in that book. It's just like these little people, like the way they kind of do, like, and so to me, sketchnoting, like, these are hats, right? These are all first draft. I just sketched it. Here's people, you know, and so it's really about encapsulating, you know, climbing a ladder. This is really about encapsulating ideas and suggesting ideas rather than being art, as Keith said. And I think that that's what's really powerful about it, that you can, and so I've used this to, and I'm trying to lean into it more as part of my own style and my own way of communicating. I've used it in slide decks and things like that. And I think that, you know, I've been afraid to be like, hey, I write weird kind of rudimentary sketches, right? You know, you always want it to be like this real fancy thing. But it's been amazing, and it's transformed my life and the way I just take notes and communicate. And I'm so thrilled that you're into it too.
Oh man, well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you sharing it with me. As always, it's been awesome catching up, and I look forward to the next time.
Cool. Yeah, check out Mike Road. He is the godfather of sketchnoting, multiple books, podcasts, resources, far better than Keith or I could ever share with you. But if you have any questions, let us know. I love sketchnoting.
Have a great day, brother.